You ever notice how the people who seem to have it all figured out are actually the easiest ones to mess with? Yeah, I'm talking about you. The person who reads psychology books, who journals every morning, who can name their triggers and attachment style. You think self-awareness is your superpower, but what if I told you it's actually your biggest weakness? Stick around because this is going to make you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. So here's the thing, we've been sold this idea that knowing yourself is the ultimate goal. Like if you can just identify your flaws, understand your patterns, and recognize your emotions, you're somehow immune to being manipulated or making bad decisions. But that's not how it works at all. In fact, the more self-aware you become, the more predictable you are. And predictable people, they're easy targets. Think about it like this. When you know exactly what makes you tick, you also know exactly what buttons can be pushed. You've basically handed over the instruction manual to your own mind. Let me give you an example. Say you've done the work. You know you have abandonment issues from childhood. You're aware of it. You've talked about it in therapy. You recognize when it's being triggered. Sounds healthy, right? But now imagine someone comes into your life who also knows this about you. Maybe you told them. Maybe they just picked up on it because you're so open about your journey. They don't even have to be a master manipulator. They just have to understand that if they pull away slightly, you'll chase. If they're inconsistent with their attention, you'll work twice as hard to earn it. They've got you figured out because you figured yourself out first and then shared the answers. Self-awareness without boundaries is just giving people a cheat code to control you. And here's where it gets even darker. Smart people, self-aware people, they think they're too intelligent to fall for manipulation. They think because they can see the game, they won't play it. But that confidence, that's the trap itself. You see manipulation coming from a mile away when it's obvious. The love bombing, the gaslighting, the guilt trips. You've read about those. You know the red flags. But what you don't see is the subtle stuff. The person who uses your own self-awareness against you. Who agrees with your analysis of yourself and then slowly starts to shape it. They'll say things like, I know you tend to overthink, so maybe you're just doing that now. Or, you said you struggle with people-pleasing, so maybe that's why you're uncomfortable with this. They're not arguing with you. They're using your own words, your own framework. And because it sounds like something you'd say to yourself, you believe it. That's the dangerous part. When someone speaks your language, uses your terminology, mirrors your level of self-reflection, you assume they're safe. You assume they get you. But understanding someone and respecting someone are two very different things. Here's another layer. The more you know about psychology, the more you think you can outsmart toxic people. You think you can fix them, or at least manage them, because you understand why they do what they do. You see their trauma. You see their defense mechanisms. You can explain their behavior better than they can. And that makes you stay way longer than you should. Because now it's not just about them. It's about proving that your knowledge means something, that your awareness gives you control, that you're different from everyone else who got burned. But you're not. You're just someone who can narrate their own downfall in real time. Let's talk about another trap. The comparison trap. When you're self-aware, you're constantly measuring yourself. You know where you fall short. You know your weak spots. You're hyper-conscious of your flaws, and guess what? So is everyone else around you. Not because they're judging you, but because you've told them. You've been so honest and vulnerable about your struggles that now they know exactly where you're fragile. Most people won't use that against you, but some will. And the ones who do won't look like villains. They'll look like friends, partners, co-workers who are just being honest with you. They'll poke at the things you already hate about yourself. They'll disguise criticism as concern. They'll make you feel like you're the problem because, well, you've already admitted you have problems. And because you're so committed to growth and self-improvement, you'll take it. You'll internalize it. You'll think they're holding up a mirror when really they're just breaking you down. Here's the thing that nobody talks about. Self-awareness can become an obsession. You start monitoring every thought, every reaction, every emotion. You're constantly checking in with yourself, analyzing, evaluating, trying to be better. And that constant self-surveillance, it's exhausting. It disconnects you from actually living your life. You're so busy being aware that you forget to just be. And when you're that disconnected, that's when people can slip in unnoticed. Because you're not trusting your gut anymore. You're not feeling your feelings. You're just observing them, categorizing them, trying to figure out if they're valid. Let's get into the social media side of this, because that's where it gets really twisted. People perform self-awareness online now. They post their therapy insights. They share their healing journeys. They talk about their shadow work and inner child and nervous system regulation. And look, some of that is genuine, but a lot of it is performance. It's a way to seem deep, to seem like you've got your life together, to build a brand around being self-aware. But what happens when your identity becomes tied to being the person who's always working on themselves? You can't ever just be okay. You always need a new issue to unpack, a new layer to peel back, a new breakthrough to share. And that becomes a different kind of trap. Not one someone else sets for you, but one you set for yourself. You start creating problems just so you can solve them. Now here's where people get uncomfortable. Sometimes self-awareness is just overthinking with a better vocabulary. You're not actually healing. You're just really good at describing why you're broken. You can explain your trauma responses in detail. You know your Enneagram type and your attachment style and your love language. But are you actually changing? Or are you just really comfortable talking about why you are the way you are? Because there's a difference between understanding yourself and using that understanding as an excuse. Between being aware of your patterns and actually breaking them. A lot of people get stuck in the awareness phase. They think naming the problem is the same as solving it. It's not. And the people who want to trap you? They love this phase. Because you're so focused on understanding yourself that you're not paying attention to what they're doing. Here's a harsh truth. The most self-aware people are often the most easily manipulated because they're the most willing to doubt themselves. They'll question their own perceptions. They'll wonder if they're overreacting. They'll consider every possible explanation for someone else's behavior except the obvious one, which is that the person just sucks. They'll twist themselves into knots trying to be fair, trying to see all sides, trying to not jump to conclusions. And while they're doing that, they're getting played. Let me tell you about something called the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's this idea that people with low ability overestimate their competence, while people with high ability underestimate theirs. Self-aware people fall into that second category. They know enough to know how much they don't know, so they're humble, they're careful, they second-guess themselves, and that makes them vulnerable. Because someone with no self-awareness, someone who's completely confident even though they're wrong, will just steamroll right over them. The self-aware person will think, maybe I'm missing something. The unaware person will just think, I'm right, and they'll act accordingly. Guess who usually gets their way? Now let's talk about therapy speak. Because this has become a huge problem. People learn psychological terms and then weaponize them. Someone calls you out for something and you say they're gaslighting you. Someone sets a boundary and you accuse them of stonewalling. And maybe sometimes that's true. But a lot of times people just use these terms to shut down conversations, to avoid accountability, to make themselves the victim in every situation. And if you're genuinely self-aware, you'll start questioning yourself. Did I gaslight them? Am I being toxic? Am I the narcissist? Meanwhile, the person throwing these terms around has no idea what they actually mean. They just know it makes you defensive, makes you doubt yourself. This is what happens when psychological literacy becomes widespread, but wisdom doesn't keep up. Here's another angle. Self-aware people are really good at empathy. They can put themselves in other people's shoes. They can see things from multiple perspectives. And that's beautiful. Until it's not. Because some people don't deserve your empathy. You'll make excuses for them. He's just going through a lot right now. She didn't mean it like that, and you're right. Everyone's dealing with something. But that doesn't mean you have to tolerate being disrespected, being hurt, being taken for granted. Your empathy isn't a free pass for someone else's bad behavior. Let's talk about growth culture for a second. This idea that you should always be evolving, always leveling up, always becoming the best version of yourself. It sounds positive. But it's actually kind of toxic, because it implies that who you are right now isn't enough. And when you internalize that, you become easy to control. Because anyone can come along and point out ways you could be better, ways you're falling short. And because you're committed to growth, you'll listen. Even if the criticism isn't valid. Even if it's just someone tearing you down to make themselves feel bigger. Here's the reality. Sometimes the most self-aware thing you can do is to stop being so self-aware. Stop analyzing everything. Stop pathologizing normal human emotions. Stop trying to optimize every aspect of your personality. Just exist, just feel. Because that constant self-monitoring? It's not freedom, it's a prison you've built in your own mind. And the worst part is, you think you're supposed to be there. You think this is what healing looks like. But maybe it's just what being trapped looks like when the prison is made of self-help books and therapy breakthroughs. So what's the solution here? How do you be self-aware without being vulnerable to manipulation? First, keep some things to yourself. You don't need to share every insight, every realization, every piece of your internal world. Some things are just for you. Second, trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. Don't talk yourself out of your instincts just because you can't rationally explain them yet. Third, remember that self-awareness is supposed to make your life better, not more complicated. And fourth, understand that being self-aware doesn't mean you have to tolerate everything. You can understand why someone is the way they are and still decide you don't want them in your life. Understanding and acceptance aren't the same thing. The goal isn't to stop being self-aware. The goal is to stop thinking that self-awareness makes you immune to being hurt. It doesn't. If anything, it just means you'll see it coming and stay anyway because you think you can handle it. You probably can't. None of us can handle as much as we think we can. That's the real dark side of self-awareness. It makes you think you're stronger than you are, more capable, more resilient. And then when you break, you blame yourself for not seeing it coming. But maybe the problem wasn't your awareness. Maybe the problem was thinking awareness was enough. It's not. You also need boundaries. You need standards. You need the willingness to walk away. Self-awareness should be a tool, not an identity. It should help you navigate life, not become your entire personality. It should make things clearer, not more confusing. If you're spending more time thinking about yourself than actually living your life, something's off balance. Real self-awareness includes knowing when to stop analyzing and start acting. Knowing when to stop understanding and start protecting yourself. Knowing when to stop being open and start being selective about who gets access to you. Because here's the truth. The people who are going to love you and respect you don't need your entire psychological profile. They don't need to know every wound, every fear, every insecurity. They just need to see that you're a person worth treating well. The people who need all that information, they're usually the ones looking for leverage, looking for weak spots, looking for ways in. And the smarter you are, the more self-aware you are, the easier you make it for them. So maybe the real power move isn't knowing everything about yourself. Maybe it's knowing enough to protect yourself and keeping the rest private. Maybe it's being aware without being exposed, conscious without being consumed, reflective without being paralyzed. That's the balance. And it's harder to find than anyone wants to admit. If this messed with your head a little bit, hit that subscribe button.